Jiwoo stepped off the transport ship and immediately felt the weight of dozens of eyes on her. Not human eyes. Velkari eyes. They glowed faintly in the dim light of the docking bay, watching her every movement with an intensity that made her skin prickle. The Velkari were impressive creatures. They stood over 7 feet tall, covered in sleek fur that ranged from deep black to silver gray. Their bodies were built for hunting, all lean muscle and coiled strength. Sharp claws clicked against the metal floor as they moved. Their faces were angular with pronounced snouts full of teeth that could tear through steel plating. To most humans, they looked like nightmares come to life. But Jiwoo had always seen things differently. Where others saw monsters, she saw intelligence. Where they saw predators, she saw a complex society trying to understand the strange, soft creatures that had recently joined the galactic community. That was why she was here. As a xenobiologist and cultural liaison, her job was to build bridges between species. Her current assignment was simple on paper, but terrifying in practice. She would study how the Velkari raised their young and help establish goodwill between their species and humanity. A tall Velkari approached her. His fur was dark gray, crisscrossed with old scars that spoke of many battles. One of his ears had a notch missing from its tip. His eyes were a striking amber color, and they studied her with barely concealed doubt. "You are the human?" His voice was a deep rumble, like distant thunder. "You are Jiwoo?" "Yes." She kept her voice steady and met his gaze. She had learned that showing fear to the Velkari was the worst thing she could do. They respected courage, even foolish courage. "I am Tai Yang. I coordinate the cub nursery." He circled her slowly, looking her up and down. "You are very small, very soft. The cubs will break you." "I'm tougher than I look," Jiwoo replied. It was true to a point. Humans were surprisingly durable compared to many species, but compared to a Velkari, she might as well be made of paper. Tae-yang made a sound that might have been a laugh or a growl. "We shall see. Come. The nursery is this way. Do not touch anything. Do not make sudden movements, and if a cub approaches you, stay very still." The outpost was a strange mix of human and Velkari architecture. Human sections had smooth walls and soft lighting. Velkari sections were darker, with rough stone surfaces and platforms at various heights. Jiwoo followed Tae-yang through winding corridors until they reached a large open space. The nursery was bigger than she expected. It had climbing structures that reached up to the high ceiling, soft surfaces for resting, and what looked like obstacles for training. Everything was sized for creatures much larger than her. "The cubs are in the rest den," Tae-yang explained. "They sleep now, but soon they will wake and play. We have 5 cubs in this group. They are between 3 and 6 solar cycles old." "That's like 3 to 6 years for humans," Jiwoo said, mostly to herself. She pulled out her data pad and began taking notes. Tae-yang's tail swished behind him. "You will observe from the platform. It is high enough to keep you safe. The cubs have not learned to control their strength yet. They do not understand that you are fragile." Jiwoo nodded and climbed up to the observation platform. It gave her a good view of the entire nursery. She settled in to wait, her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. She was about to see Velkari cubs up close. Very few humans had ever done that. A soft, chittering sound came from the rest den. Then small shapes began to emerge. The cubs were not small at all, at least not by human standards. Even the littlest one was the size of a large dog. They moved with a grace that their adult counterparts possessed, but there was a clumsiness to it, like they were still figuring out how their bodies worked. The first cub to emerge stretched and yawned, showing off a mouth full of sharp little teeth. Her fur was a warm brown color with darker stripes. She looked around the nursery with bright, curious eyes. "That is Hana," Tae-yang said quietly. She is the boldest, always first to explore, first to try new things. 4 more cubs tumbled out of the den, play fighting and chirping at each other. Tai Yang identified each one. Bora had gray fur and moved carefully, watching everything before making a decision. Yuna was small and quick with black fur that seemed to shimmer. Daeho was the biggest, with broad shoulders and protective instincts already showing. Sungmin was the smallest of the group, with soft brown fur and a playful energy that never seemed to stop. The cubs began their play. They chased each other across the nursery floor, climbed the structures with natural ease, and wrestled in ways that would have hospitalized a human child. Their claws were out, their teeth were bared, but it was all in fun. This was how they learned. Jiwoo recorded everything, fascinated. The cubs communicated with chirps, growls, and body language. They took turns being the hunter and the hunted. When one got too rough, the others would pin them down until they calmed. Then Hana stopped playing. Her head turned toward the observation platform, toward Jiwoo. The other cubs noticed and looked up too. 5 pairs of eyes locked onto her. Jiwoo felt her breath catch. She stayed very still, just as Tai Yang had instructed. The cubs tilted their heads in unison, studying this strange creature that smelled different, looked different, moved different. Hana took a step toward the platform, then another. The other cubs followed her lead, creeping closer like a pack of tiny hunters stalking prey. "Do not move," Tai Yang warned. "They are curious. This is natural." Jiwoo's hands gripped her datapad tighter, but she stayed frozen. The cubs reached the base of the platform and stared up at her. Their pupils dilated, growing wider until their eyes looked almost black. "What does that mean?" Jiwoo whispered. Tai Yang was quiet for a moment. "That is hunting interest. They see you as something to chase, something to catch." He paused. "The cubs have not yet learned the difference between play and actual hunting. You understand what I am saying?" Jiwoo understood perfectly. These adorable, fascinating cubs looked at her the same way a cat might look at a mouse. Her species had not evolved to be predators. The Velkari absolutely had. And right now, 5 young predators were trying to figure out if she was a toy or food. Sungmin, the smallest cub, made a little chirping sound. It was almost cute. Then he crouched low, his tail swishing behind him, his body coiling like a spring ready to launch. "Should I be worried?" Jiwoo asked, proud that her voice only shook a little. "Yes," Tai Yang said simply. "You should be very worried." The cubs began to circle the platform, never taking their eyes off her. Jiwoo realized that her first day was going to be much more interesting than she had planned. She had come to learn about the Velkari cubs. It seemed they wanted to learn about her too. And their methods of learning involved a lot more teeth than she was comfortable with. 3 weeks had passed since that first terrifying day. Jiwoo had survived, though not without some close calls. She had learned quickly that the observation platform was only safe until the cubs figured out they could climb it, which they did. On day 2. Now she sat on the floor of the nursery during the cubs' afternoon activity time. It was progress, Tai Yang had assured her. The fact that she was still alive meant the cubs had accepted her presence, even if they did not fully understand what she was. The Velkari way of raising cubs was very different from human methods. The cubs learned through physical play. They wrestled constantly, testing their strength against each other. They practiced hunting with mock prey that moved on tracks across the floor, and they engaged in what Tai Yang called pile behavior. Pile behavior was exactly what it sounded like. The cubs would stack themselves on top of each other in a heap of fur and limbs. It helped them learn to tolerate weight and pressure. It built trust and pack bonds. It was also, Jiwoo had discovered, their favorite thing to do. "You must understand," Tai Yang had explained one day, "that Velkari cubs need physical contact to develop properly. We are not like humans who can grow with just words and distance. We need to feel our pack around us, on us, with us. Jiwoo found it fascinating. She also found it a little worrying because the cubs had started looking at her like she might make a good addition to their pile. The concept of personal space did not exist in Velkari culture. When Jiwoo tried to explain it, Tae-yang had looked genuinely confused. "But how do you know someone is part of your pack if you do not touch them?" he had asked. "We use words mostly, and we stand near each other." That sounds very lonely. Jiwoo had to admit he had a point. Today, she was introducing the cubs to a new activity. She had brought colored blocks from the human section of the outpost. They were simple toys, meant for stacking and sorting. The cubs had never seen anything like them. Hana approached first, as always. She sniffed the blocks suspiciously, then batted one with her paw. It skidded across the floor. Her eyes lit up, and she pounced on it, wrestling with the plastic cube like it was alive. "No, not like that," Jiwoo said gently. She picked up a block and placed it on top of another one. "See? You stack them. Make them tall." Bora watched carefully, her gray head tilted. She picked up a block in her mouth, then very carefully placed it on top of the two Jiwoo had stacked. It wobbled but stayed in place. Bora chirped with pride. "Yes, good job, Bora." Jiwoo clapped her hands together. The sound startled Yuna, who had been creeping up behind Jiwoo. The little black-furred cub jumped straight up in the air and landed in a defensive crouch. The other cubs chirped with laughter. Velkari cubs could be very expressive when they wanted to be. Daeho, the biggest of the group, decided that the tower of blocks needed to be destroyed. He charged at it and sent blocks flying in all directions. Then he sat down, looking pleased with himself. "That is also part of learning," Tae-yang said. He had been watching from nearby, always vigilant. "They must learn to build and to break. Both are important skills." Sungmin, the smallest cub, had been watching Jiwoo more than the blocks. He crept closer, moving in that slow way that meant he was being very careful. His little nose twitched as he sniffed her. Jiwoo stayed still. This was a critical moment. The cubs were getting braver around her, but they still were not sure what to make of her. She was too small to be an adult Velkari, too big to be prey, and she smelled strange. Sungmin reached out one small paw and placed it on Jiwoo's knee. His claws were retracted. He was being gentle. The nursery went quiet. The other cubs stopped playing and watched. Even Tae-yang leaned forward, his ears perked up with interest. In Velkari culture, Jiwoo had learned, this gesture meant trust. It was how cubs approached their parents or pack members. It was an invitation for contact. Jiwoo slowly, very slowly, reached out her hand. She placed it on top of Sungmin's paw. The cub's fur was incredibly soft, softer than she had expected. Sungmin chirped, a happy sound. Then he climbed into Jiwoo's lap and settled down like it was the most natural thing in the world. "That has never happened before," Tae-yang said quietly. "No cub has ever done that with a non-Velkari." Jiwoo felt a lump in her throat. The small cub in her lap was purring, a rumbling sound that she could feel through her whole body. It was one of the most amazing moments of her life. The spell broke when Hana decided she wanted attention too. She bounded over and tried to climb onto Jiwoo's lap with Sungmin. There was not enough room. Both cubs tumbled to the side in a heap. "Gentle," Jiwoo said, laughing. "You have to be gentle with me. I am not as strong as you." Over the following days, Jiwoo worked on teaching the cubs that concept. Gentle, soft, careful. These were not natural ideas for young Velkari, but they were smart and they tried. She also introduced them to human games that did not involve hunting or fighting. She taught them simple puzzles where they had to move objects to get treats. She showed them pictures and asked them to identify things. She even read them stories, though she was not sure how much they understood. The cubs loved her voice. Taeyang explained that human voices were higher pitched than Velkari voices, and it soothed the cubs in a way that adult Velkari growls did not. There were some funny moments, too. Hana discovered that human hair was fascinating. One day, she started grooming Jiwoo the way Velkari groomed each other, with her rough tongue. Jiwoo yelped in surprise because it felt like sandpaper on her scalp, but she laughed about it afterward, and Taeyang actually seemed impressed. "You adapt well," he told her. "When you first arrived, I thought you would last maybe 3 days before running back to your kind. But you are still here. The cubs are learning from you, and I think perhaps you are learning from them too." He was right. Jiwoo had learned more about Velkari culture in 3 weeks than she had in years of study. She had learned that they valued courage over caution, that they showed affection through physical contact, and that their fierce appearance hid deeply loyal hearts. The cubs began treating her differently. They brought her things they found, like they would bring gifts to a pack member. Yuna brought her a small stone that sparkled. Daeho brought her a piece of synthetic meat from his lunch. Bora brought her a data pad that she had stolen from somewhere, and Jiwoo had to return it to a very confused technician. One evening, after a particularly long day, Jiwoo sat in the observation alcove, catching her breath. The cubs were supposed to be in their rest den, napping before dinner. The alcove was warm and comfortable. It had soft mats for sitting and good lighting for reading reports. Jiwoo leaned back against the wall and closed her eyes for just a moment. She was so tired. Working with the cubs took all her energy. They never stopped moving, never stopped playing, never stopped demanding attention. It was exhausting and wonderful and terrifying all at once. Just a few minutes of rest, she thought. Just a short break. The nursery was quiet. Taeyang had stepped out to get supplies. The cubs were asleep. It was peaceful. Jiwoo's breathing slowed. Her muscles relaxed. Without meaning to, she drifted off to sleep. She did not notice 5 pairs of eyes peering out from the rest den. She did not see the cubs quietly emerge, moving with practiced stealth. She did not feel them approach, their small paws making no sound on the soft floor. The cubs stood around her sleeping form, watching with great interest. To them, Jiwoo looked very peaceful, very comfortable, very much like she was inviting them to join her. And in Velkari culture, when one pack member rested, the others piled on. It was natural. It was expected. It was how things were done. Sungmin looked at his siblings. They looked back at him. A silent agreement passed between them. This was going to be fun. Sungmin moved first. He was the smallest and the lightest, which made him the perfect choice to test if this strange human pack member would wake up easily. He crept forward on soft paws, his tail held low to keep his balance. Jiwoo did not stir. She was deep in sleep, her breathing slow and steady. The past weeks had been exhausting, and her body had simply decided it needed rest right now. The small cub carefully climbed onto her legs. His weight was around 30 pounds, distributed across her shins and knees. In Velkari culture, this was nothing. Cubs piled on each other all the time, sometimes 5 or 6 deep. But Jiwoo was not a Velkari. Still, she did not wake. The warm weight on her legs just made her shift slightly and settle deeper into sleep. Sungmin looked back at his siblings and made a soft, chirping sound. The human was very comfortable, very warm, very good for piling. Bora approached next. She was always cautious, always careful. She sniffed Jiwoo thoroughly first, making sure everything was safe. Then she very delicately positioned herself across Jiwoo's torso, her head resting on the human's chest. Bora weighed about 35 pounds. Jiwoo's breathing changed slightly, becoming a bit shallower, but she still did not wake. Humans could sleep through a lot when they were truly tired. Yuna could not resist anymore. Where the others saw a sleeping pack member, she saw an opportunity for fun. She bounded over and jumped onto the growing pile, landing on top of Bora. Her 30 pounds added to the weight pressing down on Jiwoo. Now Jiwoo's eyes fluttered a little. Some part of her brain was starting to register that something was wrong. But sleep held her tight, and she could not quite break through to consciousness. Hana watched her siblings with approval. This was excellent pile behavior. The human clearly wanted to be part of the pack. Otherwise, why would she be sleeping in such an inviting position? Hana climbed up carefully, finding a spot on Jiwoo's upper chest and shoulders. Another 35 pounds joined the pile. Daeho was last. He was the biggest of the cubs at nearly 50 pounds of young muscle and fur. He looked at the pile and decided it looked very comfortable indeed. Without much thought for the consequences, he climbed on top of his siblings, settling himself at the peak of the cub pyramid. Approximately 180 pounds of Velkari cub now rested on top of Jiwoo. That was when she woke up. The first thing Jiwoo noticed was that she could not breathe properly. Her chest felt compressed, like someone had placed a heavy weight on it, which she realized with growing alarm someone had. Multiple someones. She tried to move her arms. They were pinned. She tried to move her legs. Also pinned. She managed to open her eyes and found herself staring at brown fur. Lots of brown fur. And beyond that, she could see Daeho's face looking down at her with what appeared to be satisfaction. Jiwoo tried to call for help. What came out was more of a wheeze. "Tae, Yang!" The cubs heard her make sounds and found them interesting. Yuna chirped in response. Then Bora made a trilling noise. Sungmin decided to join in with a small howl. Soon all 5 cubs were making sounds, a chorus of chirps, trills, purrs, and howls. They thought she was talking to them. They were talking back. Jiwoo tried again to move, managing to shift slightly under the weight. The cubs interpreted this as an invitation for more affection. They snuggled closer, purring louder. Daeho laid his head down, making himself even more comfortable. The pressure on Jiwoo's chest was getting worse. She could take shallow breaths, but not deep ones. Her ribs felt like they might crack. How much did these cubs weigh? How was she supposed to get out of this? Her communication device sat on a table about 3 feet away. It might as well have been on another planet. She could not reach it. She could barely move at all. Panic started to set in, but Jiwoo forced herself to stay calm. Panicking would not help. She needed to think. "Off!" she wheezed. "Get off!" The cubs did not understand. To them, this was perfect. They were bonding with their pack member. This was exactly what they were supposed to do. The fact that Jiwoo was making noises just meant she was happy too, right? Time passed. Jiwoo did not know how long. It felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Her vision started to get a little fuzzy around the edges. This was not good. This was very not good. Then she heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Footsteps. Heavy Velkari footsteps approaching the nursery. Taeyang entered carrying supplies for the cubs' evening meal. He took 2 steps into the room before stopping completely. His amber eyes went wide. His ears stood straight up. His tail froze mid-swish. The scene before him was unprecedented. 5 cubs piled high on top of the human liaison. Jiwoo's face was barely visible beneath the mountain of fur. Her eyes were wide and desperate, looking at him with an expression that clearly said, "Help me right now." For a long moment, Taeyang did not move. He was trying to process what he was seeing. In all his years coordinating the nursery, he had never witnessed anything like this. Cubs piled on each other all the time. Cubs piled on adult Velkari sometimes. But cubs piling on an alien species, this was new. A small sound escaped from the pile. It might have been a whimper. That snapped Taeyang into action. "Off!" he commanded in his deep voice. "Cubs! Off the human! Now!" The cubs looked at him with innocent eyes. Why should they get off? They were comfortable. The human was comfortable. Everything was fine. Now, Taeyang repeated, using his alpha voice. This was the tone that meant business, the tone that cubs did not argue with. Reluctantly, Yuna climbed down first, then Hana. Both cubs made disappointed mewling sounds. They had been having such a nice time. Bora followed, moving carefully to avoid stepping on Jiwoo too much. Sung Min was next, giving Jiwoo's face a small lick before climbing off. Daeho was last. He did not want to move at all. He had found the perfect sleeping spot and did not understand why he had to leave it. Taeyang had to use a low growl to get him to finally, slowly climb down from the pile. As soon as the weight lifted, Jiwoo gasped for air. She took huge, gulping breaths, filling her lungs properly for the first time in what felt like forever. Her ribs ached, her whole body ached, but she was breathing. Taeyang offered her a massive paw and helped her sit up. "Are you injured? Should I call medical?" Jiwoo assessed herself. Everything hurt, but nothing felt broken. Humans were surprisingly durable, a fact that had saved her life more than once since arriving on Velkara Prime. "I am okay," she managed between breaths. "Just need a minute." The cubs sat in a row, watching her with concern. They could tell that something was wrong, but they did not understand what. Sung Min whimpered softly. Taeyang looked at Jiwoo, then at the cubs, then back at Jiwoo. He opened his mouth to say something, maybe an apology, maybe a lecture about being more careful. Maybe a suggestion that she should return to the human section immediately. But before he could speak, something unexpected happened. Jiwoo started to laugh. It began as a small chuckle, then grew into full laughter, deep, genuine laughter that shook her whole body and made her ribs protest even more. She laughed until tears ran down her face. The cubs tilted their heads in confusion. Taeyang's ears went flat with concern. Was the human broken? Had the cubs damaged her mind? "I am sorry," Jiwoo said, still laughing. You should have seen your face when you walked in. And they just wanted to cuddle. They tried to cuddle me to death." Taeyang did not understand human humor very well, but he recognized that Jiwoo was not angry. She was not scared. She was genuinely amused by what had happened. "You are not upset?" he asked carefully. "Oh, I am definitely upset," Jiwoo said, her laughter fading to giggles. "My ribs are probably bruised. I could not breathe. It was terrifying." "Then why do you laugh?" Jiwoo looked at the 5 cubs sitting in their row, their faces showing confusion and concern. Sungmin's ears were drooping with sadness. They had not meant to hurt her. They had just wanted to show affection the only way they knew how. "Because," Jiwoo said, "this is actually amazing. Do you understand what just happened, Taeyang? They piled on me, a human. They treated me like I am part of their pack." Taeyang's expression changed as he understood. "This is significant. This is huge." Jiwoo tried to stand up too quickly and wobbled. Taeyang steadied her. "No non-Velkari has ever been accepted into a cub pack before, right? And they just did it naturally. Without being taught, they saw me as one of them." The cubs sensed that maybe they were not in trouble after all. Their ears perked up. Yuna chirped hopefully. Jiwoo limped over to the cubs and sat down in front of them, even though everything in her body protested. "You guys need to be more gentle with me. I am not as strong as you. But thank you for including me." She reached out and patted each cub on the head. They pressed into her touch, purring. Taeyang watched this interaction with something like wonder in his eyes. Perhaps he had been wrong about humans. Perhaps they were stronger than they looked, in ways that had nothing to do with muscles or claws. "We should document this," he said. "This moment will be important for our people." Jiwoo nodded, then immediately regretted moving her head so fast. Everything hurt, but it was worth it. "Next time, though," she said to the cubs, "maybe just 1 or 2 of you at a time. Please, The cubs chirped in agreement, though Ta Yang suspected they did not really understand the concept of restraint. Cubs were cubs after all. But they would learn, and so would the rest of the galaxy. Because 5 young Velkari had just proven that pack bonds could cross the boundaries of species, even if those bonds sometimes resulted in bruised ribs and breathing difficulties. The story of what the cubs had done spread through the diplomatic outpost within hours. By the next day, it had reached the human government. By the end of the week, every species in the local galactic sector had heard about it. The human diplomat who got crushed by predator cubs and lived. It became the tale everyone wanted to hear. Ji-Woo found herself suddenly famous, which was uncomfortable. She had not come to Velkara Prime to be famous. She had come to do research and help build understanding between species. But now her personal communication device buzzed constantly with messages from reporters, scientists, and curious strangers. The reaction from humans was mixed. Some thought she was a hero, showing how tough humanity could be. Others thought she was reckless and should come home immediately before something worse happened. Her supervisor, Director Kim, called her for a video conference. He was an older man with gray hair and worry lines around his eyes. Ji-Woo, "Are you sure you are safe there?" he asked. "I am getting pressure from multiple departments to recall you. They say the risk is too high." "I am fine," Ji-Woo insisted, even though her ribs still ached when she breathed deeply. The outpost doctor had confirmed they were just bruised, not broken. Human bones were surprisingly strong. "This was an accident. The cubs did not mean any harm." "Cubs that could have killed you by accident?" Director Kim pointed out. "But they did not. And we learned something important. The Velkari cubs accepted me as part of their pack. Do you understand how significant that is? For interspecies relations?" Director Kim sighed. "I understand, but I also understand that if something happens to you, it will damage relations even more. The Velkari are already controversial partners." That was true. Many humans were afraid of the Velkari. They looked dangerous because they were dangerous. Their society was built around strength and hunting prowess. It made peaceful humans very nervous. But Ji-Woo had seen another side of them. She had seen Tae Yang's patience with the cubs. She had felt their trust when they fell asleep in her lap. She knew they were more than just predators. "Give me more time," she asked. "Please. I think we are on the edge of a real breakthrough here." Director Kim was quiet for a long moment. "1 month," he finally said. "You have 1 more month to show results. But Ji-Woo, be careful. I do not want to lose you." The call ended, and Ji-Woo sat back in her quarters, feeling the weight of pressure on her shoulders. 1 month to prove that this was all worthwhile. The Velkari were having their own debates. Elder Kyung-Soo, one of the most respected leaders of the Velkari clans, called a meeting. Tai Yang was required to attend and explain what had happened. Ji-Woo was invited to attend as well, which made her extremely nervous. She would be the only human in a room full of adult Velkari. If they decided she was a threat to their cubs, well, she tried not to think about what might happen. The meeting hall was impressive and intimidating. Stone walls rose high overhead. Banners from different clans hung from the ceiling. Adult Velkari sat on benches arranged in a circle, their eyes glowing in the dim light. Elder Kyung-Soo sat at the head of the circle. He was ancient by Velkari standards, his fur gone completely silver with age. But his eyes were sharp, and his presence commanded respect. "Tell us what happened," he said to Tae Yang. Tae Yang explained the incident clearly and without emotion. He told them how the cubs had accepted Ji-Woo over time, how they had piled on her while she slept, and how she had reacted afterward. "And you say she laughed?" one of the younger Velkari asked, his tone skeptical. "After nearly being crushed?" "She did," Tae Yang confirmed. "She understood that the cubs meant no harm. She saw it as a bonding behavior." "Or she is damaged in the head," another Velkari muttered. Several others made sounds of agreement. Elder Kyung-soo raised a paw for silence. The human is here. She can speak for herself. He turned his gaze to Ji-woo. Tell us, small one, why do you remain? Most creatures would flee after such an experience. Ji-woo stood up, which felt silly since even standing she was shorter than the sitting Velkari. But she kept her voice steady. I remain because I believe in what we are doing. Your cubs have shown that species differences do not matter when it comes to pack bonds. That is important. That could change how all of us interact in the galaxy. Pretty words, said a female Velkari with dark fur. But you are soft, weak. What can you teach our cubs except to be gentle? And gentleness will get them killed in the real world. Ji-woo felt anger flash through her. I am teaching them that strength comes in many forms. Yes, I am physically weaker than a Velkari cub, but I am still here. I survived what would kill many species. Humans are tougher than we look. Tough enough to be crushed? Someone asked, and several Velkari made sounds that might have been laughter. Tough enough to get back up afterward, Ji-woo shot back. Tough enough to come to this meeting even though I am scared of all of you. Tough enough to keep trying even when it is hard. That is also strength. The room went quiet. Elder Kyung-soo studied her with those sharp eyes. You speak truth, he finally said. You have courage. But courage alone is not enough. We must think of what is best for the cubs. One of the Velkari stood up. Her name was Sora, and Ji-woo recognized her from around the outpost. She was young for a warrior, but had already earned many honors in combat. I say the human should leave, Sora declared. She makes the cubs soft. They will grow up weak, confused about what they are. We are predators. We do not bond with prey species. Humans are not prey, Ji-woo said firmly. Then what are you? Sora challenged. You have no claws, no fangs, no armor. Your senses are weak. You are slow. If the cubs see you as equal, they will forget what it means to be Velkari. Ji-woo wanted to argue more, but Ta-Yang stepped forward. The cubs are not weak, he said. I have been training them for many cycles. They are as strong and fierce as any cubs I have raised. Ji-woo has not made them soft. She has made them curious. She has made them think about the world in new ways. That is not weakness. That is intelligence. You defend her because you have grown soft as well, So-ra said dismissively. Tae-Yang's lips pulled back from his teeth in a snarl. Watch your words, young one. Elder Kyung-soo raised his paw again. Peace. We are not here to fight among ourselves. He looked around the circle. This is a new situation. Never before has a non-Velkari been accepted by cubs in this way. We must decide carefully. The debate went on for hours. Some Velkari supported Ji-woo's presence. Others opposed it. Arguments were made on both sides, some reasonable, and some based purely on fear of change. Finally, Elder Kyung-soo made his decision. The human may stay, he announced, but we will watch carefully. If the cubs show signs of weakness or confusion, she will be removed immediately. This is my judgment. It was not a complete victory, but it was enough. Ji-woo felt relief wash over her. As the meeting ended and Velkari began to leave, So-ra approached Ji-woo. Up close, the young warrior was even more intimidating. You have been given a chance, So-ra said quietly. Do not waste it, and do not think this is over. I will be watching. When you fail, and you will fail, I will be there to prove that humans have no place in our culture. She walked away before Ji-woo could respond. That night, Ji-woo returned to the nursery. The cubs were excited to see her, chirping and climbing over each other to get to her first. They had not understood the politics and debates. They just knew that their friend was back. Taeyang pulled her aside. You should know that your time here has become a test, not just for you, but for all of us. There are those like Sora who want you to fail. They will look for any excuse to remove you. I understand, Jiwoo said. I do not think you do, Taeyang replied seriously. In 1 month, there will be a ceremony. Cubs from all over this sector will demonstrate their skills for the clan elders. Our cubs will be judged. And you will be judged with them. What kind of demonstration? Hunting, fighting, pack coordination, all the skills a young Velkari must master. Taeyang's expression was grave. If the cubs fail, it will be seen as proof that your presence has harmed them. Sora has already promised to reveal the truth about human weakness at that ceremony. Jiwoo felt her stomach sink. This was bigger than she had realized. The cubs' future and her entire mission rested on how well they performed in 1 month. Then we had better get to work, she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Sungmin climbed into her lap, purring. The other cubs gathered around her. They trusted her completely. They did not know that their whole world might be about to change. Jiwoo looked at each of them and made a silent promise. She would not let them down. She would not let fear or doubt or Sora's challenges stop her. She was human, and humans, she was determined to prove, were tougher than anyone expected. The month passed faster than Jiwoo expected. Every day was filled with training. The cubs practiced their hunting skills, their fighting techniques, and their pack coordination. Taeyang pushed them hard, preparing them for the ceremony that would determine their future. Jiwoo worked alongside them, though her role was different. She could not teach them to hunt or fight like a Velkari. Instead, she taught them strategy. She taught them to think before acting. She taught them that working together was stronger than working alone. The cubs absorbed everything. They were smart and eager to learn. But Jiwoo worried. Would it be enough? Would the clan elders see the value in what the cubs had learned, or would they only see that a human had influenced them? The night before the ceremony, Jiwoo could not sleep. She sat in the nursery watching the cubs rest in their den. They looked so peaceful, curled up together in their usual pile. Taeyang found her there in the darkness. You should rest, he said quietly. I cannot. What if something goes wrong tomorrow? What if I have hurt them somehow? Taeyang sat down beside her, a massive presence in the shadows. You have not hurt them. You have given them something unique. Whether others see that value is not something you can control. Sora is going to challenge them, is she not? Yes, Taeyang admitted. She has been given permission to test the cubs directly. It is her right as a warrior to question their training. Jiwoo felt sick. What will she do? I do not know, but it will be difficult. She wants to prove her point about human weakness. They sat in silence for a while. Then Jiwoo asked something that had been bothering her. Taeyang, why have you supported me? You did not trust me at first. You could have sent me away at any time. The old Velkari was quiet for a long moment. Because I have seen many cubs grow into adults. And these cubs, your cubs, they are different. They think more. They question more. They work together better than any group I have trained. He turned to look at her. That is because of you. And I believe our people need to learn that being different is not the same as being weak. The ceremony began at dawn. The demonstration arena was huge, carved into natural stone with platforms and obstacles throughout. Hundreds of Velkari gathered to watch, not just from this outpost, but from across the sector. This was an important event in their culture. Jiwoo stood with the other caretakers and teachers at the edge of the arena. She was the only human present. She felt every eye on her, judging her, questioning her presence. Elder Kyung-soo stood at the center platform. His voice carried across the arena without needing technology. "We gather to witness the next generation," he announced. "These cubs will show us what they have learned. They will prove they are worthy to become young warriors of the Velkari people." Groups of cubs from different nurseries took turns demonstrating their skills. They hunted mechanical prey with precision. They fought in controlled matches that showcased their strength. They moved as coordinated packs, each member knowing their role. All the cubs were impressive. All of them showed the fierce predator nature of the Velkari species. Then it was time for Jiwoo's cubs. Hana, Bora, Yuna, Daeho, and Sungmin entered the arena. They looked so small compared to the adult Velkari watching them, but they held their heads high and their tails steady. The first test was individual hunting. Each cub had to track and capture a fast-moving drone. One by one, they succeeded. Their technique was flawless. Tai Yang had trained them well. The second test was combat. The cubs paired off and engaged in mock battles, showing their fighting skills. Again, they performed perfectly. They were as fierce as any Velkari cubs. Jiwoo began to relax. Maybe this would be okay after all. Then, Sora stepped forward. "I request permission to issue a challenge," she announced. Elder Kyung-soo looked displeased, but nodded. "You may." Sora turned to face the cubs. "These cubs have been trained by a human. I wish to test whether that training has made them weak. I wish to test their predator instincts." Before anyone could object, Sora released something into the arena. It was a Krath, a large, aggressive animal from a nearby world. The Krath was bigger than the cubs, with razor-sharp spines and a nasty temperament. The crowd gasped. This was not part of the normal ceremony. This was dangerous. The Krath, confused and angry at being released, looked around the arena, its eyes fixed on the cubs. It saw them as threats. It charged. "No!" Jiwoo shouted. She started to run toward the arena, but Tae Yang grabbed her arm. "You cannot interfere," he said urgently. "If you do, the cubs will be disqualified. They must handle this themselves. They are children. They could be killed." "They are Velkari," Tae Yang said firmly. "Trust them." In the arena, the cubs reacted. For a moment, they looked scared. The Krath was bigger and stronger than anything they had faced before. It roared and charged toward them. But instead of scattering in panic, the cubs moved together. They had practiced this. Pack coordination. Working as a unit. Hana darted to the left, drawing the Krath's attention. Bora and Yuna moved to flank it from the sides. Daeho positioned himself as an anchor point, and little Sungmin, the smallest, moved to cover their retreat if needed. The Krath swung at Hana, but she was too fast. She dodged and led it in a circle. While it was focused on her, Bora and Yuna struck from the sides, confusing it. The Krath turned, not sure which target to chase. This was not how Velkari cubs usually fought. Normally, they would attack directly, relying on strength and ferocity. But these cubs were using strategy. They were using tactics Jiwoo had taught them. The Krath managed to knock Yuna aside. She tumbled across the stone floor and did not get up immediately. Jiwoo could not watch any more. Without thinking, she tore away from Tae Yang's grip and ran into the arena. She grabbed the shock baton from her belt, a safety device all humans were issued. The Krath saw her and changed targets. To a predator, she looked like easier prey than the cubs. It charged toward her. Jiwoo stood her ground. At the last moment, she dodged to the side and jammed the shock baton into the Krath's flank. The creature roared in pain and knocked her backward with tremendous force. She hit the ground hard, the breath knocked out of her lungs. Her vision blurred. She tried to get up, but her body would not respond. The Krath turned back toward her, ready to finish what it started. But then Daeho was there. The big cub placed himself between Jiwoo and the Krath. He roared, a sound deeper and more fierce than any cub should be able to make. His claws extended, his teeth bared. The other cubs joined him. Even Yuna, who had been knocked down, limped over to stand with her siblings. They formed a protective circle around Jiwoo's fallen body. The Krath hesitated. It was facing 5 young predators who were willing to fight to protect one of their pack. What happened next was pure Velkari ferocity combined with human tactical thinking. The cubs attacked as one, not separately, but as a coordinated unit. Hana and Bora went for the legs, destabilizing the Krath. Yuna went for the eyes, blinding it. Sungmin harassed it from behind, never giving it a moment to recover. And Daeho, standing over Jiwoo, delivered a powerful strike whenever the Krath got too close. The Krath realized it was outmatched. It backed away, then retreated to the far side of the arena where Tae Yang and other adults quickly contained it. The arena was completely silent. The cubs remained in their protective formation around Jiwoo until they were sure the danger was past. Only then did they lower their guard. Jiwoo managed to sit up, her body screaming in protest. She would have bruises for weeks, but she was alive. The cubs surrounded her immediately, chirping with worry. They checked her for injuries with their noses and paws, their earlier fierceness replaced with gentle concern. Elder Kyung-soo walked into the arena. His expression was unreadable. He looked at So-ra, who stood at the edge with her mouth open in shock. "This was not an approved test," Elder Kyung-soo said, his voice cold with anger. "You endangered cubs. You will answer for this." Then he turned to Jiwoo and the cubs. He studied them for a long moment. "What I just witnessed," he said slowly, "was remarkable. These cubs did not act like typical Velkari cubs. They used strategy. They used coordination. They put the safety of a pack member above their own safety." He paused, looking around at the gathered crowd. "And the human, despite being injured, placed herself between danger and the cubs. She protected them with her own body, even though she is weak by our standards." Jiwoo tried to stand but wobbled. Taeyang came to support her. Elder Kyung-soo continued. "I have seen many ceremonies. I have seen many cubs demonstrate their skills. But I have never seen what I saw today. True pack behavior, true loyalty, true courage that goes beyond species." He looked directly at Jiwoo. "You have taught these cubs something we thought they knew, but you showed them a deeper truth. Pack is not about being the same. Pack is about protecting each other no matter the cost." The elder raised his voice so all could hear. "These cubs have passed their test. Not just passed, they have exceeded expectations, and the human, Jiwoo, has proven that strength comes in many forms." The crowd erupted. Some Velkari cheered. Others looked confused, but no one could deny what they had witnessed. So-ra looked devastated. Her challenge had backfired completely. In the following days, everything changed. Elder Kyung-soo made an official declaration. The cubs were recognized as the first multi-species pack in Velkari history. Jiwoo was given permission to continue her work, not just with these cubs, but to expand the program to other nurseries. Other Velkari clans began requesting human liaisons. The concept of multi-species cooperation, once unthinkable, became a topic of serious discussion across the sector. Jiwoo was offered a permanent position as Cultural Integration Specialist. Director Kim called to congratulate her, though he also insisted she take a vacation after her injuries healed. The cubs continued to grow, stronger and smarter every day. They never forgot that Jiwoo was part of their pack, and she never forgot that they had protected her when it mattered most. 3 months after the ceremony, Jiwoo sat in the observation alcove during the cubs' rest time. She was working on a report about interspecies bonding behaviors. The nursery was quiet and peaceful. She set down her data pad and stretched. Her ribs had healed, though they still ached sometimes when it rained. She leaned back against the cushioned wall and closed her eyes, just for a moment. She heard soft footsteps approaching. She smiled without opening her eyes. "I know what you are thinking," she said to the cubs. They chirped innocently. "You want to pile on me again." More chirping, this time with an undertone of mischief. "Okay, Ji-woo said, still not opening her eyes. But gently this time. Remember what we practiced. Sung-min climbed on first, as always, but he was careful about where he placed his weight. Bora came next, distributing herself properly. Yuna, Hana, and Daiho followed, each one being mindful of how much pressure they applied. The cubs had learned. They were still doing their natural pile behavior, but now they understood how to do it without crushing their human pack member. Ji-woo felt the warm weight of 5 growing Velkari pressing down on her. It was still uncomfortable. It still made breathing a bit difficult, but it was manageable now. She felt their purring through her whole body. She felt safe and accepted and loved in a way that transcended species and culture. "This is home," she whispered. The cubs purred louder in agreement. Outside the nursery, Ta Yang walked past and glanced in. He saw Ji-woo buried under cubs and shook his head with amusement. He had learned to expect this sight. He no longer worried about finding the human crushed. These cubs knew how to be gentle now. Well, gentle by Velkari standards anyway. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest or the most dangerous. But they had one special trait that made them unique. They could find family anywhere. They could build bridges across any divide, and they were tough enough to survive being loved by predators. Sometimes, that was the greatest strength of all.